Good evening and welcome to the overnight edition of From Day One. Of course, Art Bell is along tonight with Michael and Nicola Sebastian about night terrors and dreams. They were just talking about a causation ball when we had to leave them last night. So without further ado, let's return to Dark Matter, the precursor to Midnight in the Desert.
Mythological? Yeah, mythological. And they get a ball of white light and they let it build. And then wherever you focus is where it shoots out to. And it hits the person pretty hard, enough to knock them into their last life. Well, at that point we pay for that power. For that power that we've just used, but at the same time we've abused because we've done harm to somebody. Whereas if it bounces back to them, they have done it to themselves, and they're going to get hit just as hard as they sent it. So there's the demarcation.
Just so you two know, I was married to a wonderful woman who was a practitioner of the craft. So I'm pretty familiar with a lot of what you're talking about. All right. I would like to bring up something just to get lighter for a second before we get back on the other side here. Some dreams, well, they're okay. I mean, some dreams are even great. I mean, sex, for example. There's worse things that you can wish upon a person in a dream than sex. I mean, nothing wrong with that. Maybe you're going to be tired, but you're going to have a smile on your face. So wake up with a smile on your face, right?
That's right. It's dream sex. That's the best.
Yeah, dream sex. So if you want to have a sex dream, I would presume that you can bring that on as well beforehand, yes?
Yes, you can. You can program it.
Meaning you could program the intent of your affections, and there she would be in your dream? Is that true?
You could, yes. All you do is
really
drift off. And we do it inadvertently or unintentionally every night. People go, man, I was dreaming about blah, blah, whatever, work, for example. And I'll say, well, what were you thinking about before you fell off to sleep? And they go, well, I was thinking about what I needed to do tomorrow at work. Exactly. You just programmed your dream. Thereby, the same is true if you want a sexual dream. You can visualize before you fall asleep. You can visualize whatever fantasy you have for whatever particular person, and at some point you're going to pick up that thread as you fall asleep and go there, and that's what you bring back with you.
But I would recommend consent.
Yeah, you need consent.
Consent? And now see, you wouldn't think in the astral plane you'd have to have consent. You would think the consent would be like automatic.
Along with the karma.
As above, so below. In other words,
if you don't have consent in the physical, you might go to jail. Well, and that's the karma. Well, same is true.
In the astral, yeah, you go to astral police, put you in astral jail. It's not a nice place, all right?
All right, on that note, we'll be right back. Nicole and Michael, I'm Art Bell, and this is Dark Matter. Or not so dark.
Something bad is happening out there. Fortunately, you're in here, surrounded by dark matter with Art Bell.
God, I love that voice. Hi, everybody. I am Art Bell, and I've got the dream team with me, Nicole and Michael, and we're talking about, well, frankly, mostly the dark side of dreams. Dark matter, indeed. So, let's move on now to, well, before we move on, I would like to say this. I have encountered in my life I wrote this down when you mentioned it earlier about the medium. I was sent this horrible doll. I mean, this doll, there was no, it came in a package back when I did the other show. And I opened the package, and inside there was this horrible, that's the only way to describe it. It was a horror, a doll, an old, raggedy, but horrible doll. And there were also some other smelly little things and other things in the box. Man, I'll tell you what, I looked at that and I said, it's out of here. And it was out of here. I mean, into the dumpster and dumpster out to the street. Don't want it anywhere near. I just had a feeling that I had received something really, really, really evil. Any comments?
I think you're on the money with that one.
Yeah.
Just the vibration. See, intuitively, we call it reading the fabric. And it's picking up on the vibration of a person, of an object, such as the doll. And intuitively, you knew immediately. You read the vibrations on that one and got it out of your sphere, out of your state of consciousness immediately. And
trust me when I say there was nothing I had to read. It was like a giant neon sign flashing on and off. Evil, evil, evil. That's how strong it was.
Yeah. Ooh. I don't know. Who sent you that? Was that an anonymous?
There was no return address, and so yeah, it was.
That was some bad karma on that person.
Bad. Yeah. All right, let's move on now. You've actually got something you want to talk about called astral or psychic criminals. How do they take advantage of us in our dreams, and can we call ha? But I heard you mention them earlier, the astral police. Now, first of all, there are astral or psychic criminals, yes?
Yes. And they exist on the astral plane, once again, as above, so below. Just like they exist here. There are criminals who take advantage of us in our dreams, people who take advantage of us whenever we're in our astral bodies and are not fully protected, or possibly maybe we stumble into a bad neighborhood, someplace we're not familiar with, and we get out of our depth, and we can come to harm by these psychic criminals.
Yeah. I mean, like getting off on the wrong street in East L.A. You're in trouble.
South Central L.A., there you go.
Yeah, all right. So, South Central. So there really are these criminals, and they're really, but astral police, folks, come on.
Sure. And there are astral police, just like they're a replica, if you will, of the police that are here. And some people call them, and I have seen them before, and I call them the men in black, almost like the men in black. And they come to track. Sometimes on the physical plane, they will show up to track down the astral criminals that are here terrorizing people that have come into our plane by one method or another, and to do so, to cross the veil without having a body here, is a violation of a spiritual law. And they're trying to track them down, and when they do, they take them back and put them in astral prison.
Jail.
So
you're really out of my element now. I had no idea there were MIBs on the other side. I've never seen such things, so I wouldn't know. So you could actually be saved by one of these astral police, or if they don't arrive in time, God knows what could happen to you. Probably only God.
Yeah, and then you could take a scenario where something some sort of serious harm occurs to you while traveling in the astral dimension or the astral body, and some people awaken from a night terror or a terrifying dream of some sort, and they actually have marks on their body. It's unusual, but not that unusual. Yeah.
Oh no, I've heard of this. Oh no, I'm very aware. Can you do the equivalent of calling? If you're in the astral plane, can you call 911?
I would call Hugh, and you can use that vibration. Really, it's like changing the channel on your remote, because in a place of fear and darkness, it's on a frequency. Really, everything's a vibration or a frequency, as we know from quantum. That's all there is in all the universes. That's it, period. And when we hue, we change the frequency to one of a higher vibration. Consequently, the focus shifts immediately, and we're taken out of that dark place. So,
Here, I've got it. Here we go, Art. Something that happened to me years ago just came to mind. I'm going to share it right now because it's germane to what we're talking about. Oh, about 15 years ago, I had a procedure, and so they gave me Percocet, right? Percocet, opiate narcotic. Okay.
Yes.
So I'm home from work. You know, Michael and I, we've been together 19 years now. We're married, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm home on my little Percocet, you know, and when you're on opiates, you're kind of in this world and you're in the astral world simultaneously. You're kind of in that twilight state. And so Michael leaves for work, okay? And he had just left. And I'm laying on the bed, and I'm in pain, so I'm really not moving. I'm not too mobile. And all of a sudden, I hear the sliding glass door close, and I thought he came back in. And then I hear someone walking down the hall. And I hear, like, you know, Michael used to wear Dockers a lot of the time. And as the pant legs would rub together, you can hear the material. And so I heard what I thought was Michael walking down the hall towards me. I thought he came back in. Maybe he forgot something. And I'm laying there, half here and kind of floating, drifting in the astral, this type of thing. And all of a sudden, I hear this voice, and I feel this dark energy come over me. And in that moment, I was completely frozen. I could not move. I couldn't do anything. And I heard the voice speak to me. It was not Michael. It was not a physical being. It was an actual astral criminal, if you will. And it was coming to do me harm. And in that moment, I knew the only thing I could do, because I was frozen, literally. I could not move my body because of this dark force, that I hewed inwardly, and it immediately vanished, and I was fine.
Good.
So
well, I'm curious, what did this criminal say to you?
It was sexual in nature, to be quite honest with you.
Oh?
Yeah.
Oh. Well, then I won't ask. That's all right.
It was not cool at all, Art. So, and I was frozen the whole nine. So I've had the experience personally, and I wasn't asleep while it happened, but I was in between the two states. So it's real.
That's very interesting when you mention in between the two states, because a lot of very odd things happen in between those states. I mean, sometimes this is pretty cool. When I'm falling asleep, I enter a state where I'm still conscious, and I'm conscious that I'm thinking of weird things. Does that make any sense to either one of you? And following that, I know that sleep is coming when I get to that state where I'm thinking of these odd fantasy, and I'm not talking necessarily about sex, just fantasy type things, whatever it is. I'm actually, so it's kind of like a lucid dream almost, but it's a state I reach just before sleep.
Yeah, it's called twilight. We call it twilight, and it's in between the two states. It's when you're slipping out of your alpha state, which is when you're drowsy and you're starting to drop off, but you haven't slipped into a full dream state yet, into a theta state, let's say. And if they were doing it on an EEG, however, it's a point of consciousness where we're really shifting gears in the consciousness or leaving the body. And at some point, we might notice also that we're picking up on strange new thoughts. This is the state at which a lot of geniuses, a lot of normal people get ideas from, musical downloads, new melodies, new tunes. You'll jot them down. Einstein was a good example. He'd sit there in his chair and he'd drop off just before he dropped off to sleep. A lot of times he'd be holding a pencil and he'd drop it and wake him up because he'd get an idea, and he'd jot it down. And he contended, in his own words, he said, "This is where a lot of my breakthrough ideas occurred, in that twilight sleep." One of them was he saw a beam of light go toward, as he was drifting off, he saw a beam of light inwardly go toward the moon. And when it got close to the moon, instead of the beam of light going straight, it started to bend around the gravitational field of the moon. He woke up and he thought, could that be? Maybe light doesn't go in a straight line. Maybe it actually bends around. And he jotted it down, and sure enough, when he invented the mathematics to work it out, it was valid, and that became his theory. And then when they tested it with lasers, they found that to be the case.
All right.
So
I've got one for you guys. Absolute. I'm holding my hand up. I swear to God, this is the truth. My friend and I were trying to figure out how to get a signal from here in our little valley here in Trump over to Las Vegas, and to do it in a very different way than it's normally done. And it was a very complex question. We had been bantering about 2 or 3 days, many of us, about the problem. And I was intensely concentrating on it, had no idea what the answer was, went to sleep. And I'm telling you guys, at 2 o'clock in the morning, my eyes popped totally wide open, and I knew the answer. I immediately got out of bed, went to a piece of paper and diagrammed the whole thing out. And then, by God, the next morning I woke up, I looked at the diagram, and it was the answer. It was so. These things can happen. You can solve them in your sleep. And I'm not talking about twilight sleep, but sleep. My eyes popped open at 2 o'clock in the morning, and I had it, baby. It was in my head. I put it to paper, went back to bed. I think I did call somebody and make them angry and woke them up because I was so excited. But then went back to bed, and sure enough, it was the answer.
That's where the maxim "just sleep on it" comes from, because we literally problem solve, get answers, get guidance, get solutions while we're sleeping, and there's proof, your own experience with it, and it's so cool. I mean, and that's why we just, we totally dig dreams, because there's such benefit.
And I actually met Nicole many, many years ago. I met Nicole in a dream 5 full years before I ever laid eyes on her or met her in my daily reality, in my physical life. I had a dream, and I was teaching at a college in Texas at the time. Had a dream that was one of those lucid dreams, real clear. Woke up completely remembering the dream, and the girl in the dream was named Nicole. She was a stranger, and I jotted down the way she looked, her name, and we were in chemistry class together, which, indicates there's going to be chemistry. Fast forward 5 years, and who walks into my class? I'm teaching sociology. Who walks into my class but the dream girl, Nicole? And it changed my life. I mean, that's when I knew the validity of dreams, yeah.
All right, here's another one for you, dream-related. I want the answer to this. I have for a long time. If we have even a very striking dream, unless we write it down, unless we make note of it in some way that, we can hold on to it, our dreams slip away really, really quickly. And while it was a very impactful dream, whatever it was, it can be gone in 10 minutes of getting up to get your coffee or whatever it is you're doing. It's gone. And all you can remember is, my God, I had this incredible dream last night, but I can't remember it.
You got it. And it's because it occurred in a different state of consciousness. So when we wake up, now we're in the physical state of consciousness. And the whole key is to download the dream. And a really good technique is when you wake up, you lie still in bed, and you keep your eyes closed so you're still connected to that other state. You let the dream filter down to this state, then you grab hold of it, jot it down, then you go about your day. Otherwise, it's like smoke, Art. You're absolutely right. It's gone, and it's really gone. Good luck getting it back.
All right. You're telling me that occasionally we have past life dreams. Now, that means you're dreaming the dream of somebody who lived before you, but whose soul still resides within, right?
Eloquent, yes.
Exactly.
Okay, and how do we recognize, dreams can be pretty esoteric, right? How do we recognize it's one of our predecessors.
Well, there's a knowingness. I have experienced this in this manner, that there's a knowingness that goes with it. You intuitively know that that was you in a prior lifetime. Additionally, perhaps a dream may go like this. You're having a dream, and all of a sudden you can speak fluent German in the dream. And maybe you're even in Germany, and you don't speak German, and you've never been to Germany in this life, but this whole type of dream occurred. That's a good indicator that that's a past life dream. Couple that with intuitive knowingness, and voila, you've got your answer.
Or additionally, Art, you might be a Roman centurion, and you've got a feel for it. There's a feel that goes with it. When you wake up, you go, oh, my God, that was so real. I was a centurion. I was in Rome. I
was just wiping the blood off my blade.
That's right. I was in the arena and taking care of the lions. But that's one way. I mean, that's a sure way to identify those past life dreams. Gender also. Possibly you're a male in this life, and you have a dream in which you're a female, and you wake up, it was so real. And that feeling.
Never had it. That's pretty cool. So you cross-gender dreams. I've never had one. Never dreamed of being female. I don't know if I'm wild about the idea. But actually, in a way, I am, because it'd be kind of interesting to know what the other side is like.
Exactly. That's an easy way of doing it. You get a complete taste, touch, feel for the other side. Yeah.
So, if you were to have such a dream, you would experience the characteristics of the female body as opposed to the male body, of the way it feels to be a female, of the way I don't know, the ups and downs of being a female, or the other way around, of being a male. That's amazing. I would love to have that. How do I get that if I'd like to give that a shot?
You can program it.
That's right.
Program it tonight. And honestly, programming, so you'll program it and you'll have it, but you might not remember. So if you don't get the answer or experience on the first night, don't give up. Program it again. Usually by the third night, you'll have the experience and you will remember it as well.
You categorize past life dreams as so terrifying that you might not want to go back to sleep. So really, I mean, that terrifying?
It depends on the past life.
Yeah.
Some could be heavenly.
In many cases, you might tap into how you died in the previous life, and that may not be so pleasant. Getting buried. Think about it: getting buried alive, or all the different things.
Yeah, you know what I have found. For knowingness, it's good to program. Is reincarnation real? Are past lives valid? Show me a past life. That's very direct. But the way I allow my own dream tracking to work is I allow it to come in the manner that Spirit wants it to be delivered to me. In other words, if I have a question, should I take this job? Should I move? I'll be very direct in knowing this that way. But as far as past life dreams, I let Spirit deliver to me whatever is best for my unfoldment. So I don't mess with it, because maybe I don't want that experience, Art, because maybe it's going to be disharmonious, and unsettling. So I let things flow naturally with the best intentions behind it.
I would say my biggest fear in life, folks, is the earth opening up and swallowing me. So every time I see one of these stories of the sinkhole on the news, I get the shudders. I'm telling you, it just freaks me out. There was a guy that got swallowed by a sinkhole and killed not very long ago, who had been in bed.
Yeah, I read that.
Yeah, that's right. Sinkhole opened, swallowed him. I don't think they ever found his body, so he was instantly buried. That's, to me, just absolutely terrifying.
Let me mention something. A good way to know if something is past life connected is this. If something is presented, whether it's an idea, a thought, an activity, or a person, and upon the thought of it or upon meeting the person, we have a strong affinity or a strong disdain for the thought, idea, activity, or person. And there's no apparent connection to this life. It is past life related. And that is a surefire way of knowing.
So your fear of being swallowed by the earth is probably connected to a past life incarnation and how you died in that lifetime.
I don't much like that.
I don't blame you.
Really, I don't.
Some people have a fear of water, but there's no apparent connection in this life. A past life connection. Maybe they meet someone and they immediately just adore the person. They totally vibe with them and everything's cool. Past life connection. Same case in point, you meet someone and you are highly offended by this person and there's not even really a valid reason why. Past life connection.
Yep.
An example would be my now wife, who, believe it or not, having lived all her life on an island, had no clue how to swim. How do you live on an island? I don't know how to swim. Anyway, I taught her to swim. Now, for me, once I learned to swim, my fear of water went away. But not hers. Even though she knows how to swim, which means you can save yourself if something bad happens, you can swim. Still, she is absolutely terrified of the water.
Mm-hmm.
And I've wondered, where does that come from? Once you know how to swim, you shouldn't be afraid anymore.
One would think, but then again, if we look at it from the viewpoint of what I just mentioned, perhaps that's the scenario, and that's the explanation.
Isn't that something? All right, we're at another break point, so hang loose, guys. We're talking to the Dream Team, Nicole and Michael, and they have written a number of books, some of which I'm sure you're going to be interested in, if you want to solve, well, whatever it is that comes to you in a dream that you don't like. You're listening to Dark Matter in the night. Don't worry. There'll be plenty of time to call. We'll get to that shortly. We've got the Dream Team here, Nicole and Michael. And we're talking about dreams, and it's really, really fascinating stuff. There's the so-called great law of as above, so below. That sounds pretty ominous. As above on earth, so below, well, way down there. But I would suspect that these two don't even think there is a way down there. Do you?
Bingo. Bingo, bingo.
Really? Bingo what? Bingo yes there is, or?
No, you're right. You nailed us.
Oh, okay. You don't think there is one? Good.
No, I mean, I think that there's the physical plane, the astral plane, the causal mental soul, planes of duality, the astral plane, there's a small segment of that there's astral hell, and the most demented people go there for their karmic lessons after they translate.
Astral hell? Did you wait. Astral hell?
Yes, our astral hell. Michael wants to tell you all about it.
All right, Michael.
It's remedial. Everybody gets out and goes back home. It's a temporary thing. Kind of like living in certain cities in the U.S. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm not going there.
No, I won't. No way.
Okay, you did say you're in Detroit, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
That's not like astral hell, is it?
I knew you were going to compare it to an astral.
I'm sorry.
It gets such a bad rap, but Detroit really rocks, Art. I'm not kidding you. Best food, best prices, the weather. I could go on and on.
People are pretty.
Did you say it rocks or is on the rocks?
A little of both.
Okay. So astral hell is nothing but a remedial thing, kind of like getting sentenced, I guess, to community service.
That's a nice way of putting it.
Yeah, actually it is. Yeah. So then we get released, and
not everyone goes there either. Like I said, the most deranged or demented, need to go to that place, but certainly not everybody.
And I think we create our hells here on a daily basis. I mean, You know, how many people live in a personal hell? I've met a lot of them. So we create our own hells.
Because, you know, it seems to me, though, you two, and maybe you can comment on this, that those people who are deranged, who are crazy as loons, and do these horrible things that we read about in the news all the time, well, frankly, they're crazy. I think we execute a lot of crazy people, and I've always struggled with this because it does seem to me that if you're mentally impaired to the degree that you do the things we read about, that you don't exactly deserve hell because you're not really making this conscious decision to do evil. You're driven to do it by some mental defect.
That's a good point. I think that's why Michael used the word remedial.
Yeah.
It's not as abrasive as it sounds.
And I would agree with you, Art. I mean, I think that these people, and a lot of people would disagree with this, but sociologically, it's like their acts themselves, the act defines them. So many standard deviations from the norm, that defines them as crazy. And as such, they have diminished responsibility. You know, under the spiritual law and under the physical law. So maybe we take retribution as a society on them, but they are not totally responsible for themselves in that sense.
On the other hand, now, there are people that are mentally stable, able to make rational decisions, and choose to do evil. They're not crazy. They just choose to do evil. That's a different category in my mind.
Absolutely. It goes back to what I was saying. Intention determines everything, Art. It really does. Intention of the heart and the act determines the outcome.
Now we're going to talk about something really, really, really scary, as if this hasn't been enough. But I'm almost afraid to ask. I have dreamed, as I'm sure many people in the audience have, and we'll hear about it, of almost dying, but I never die. In other words, I fall off a cliff, and I'm screaming like a banshee, not going whoo, but going ah, and I'm going to hit the ground, but I wake up before I hit the ground. The question is it possible that sometimes you don't wake up before you hit the ground, and you do hit the ground, and not only do you die in your dream, but you die?
Yes. And often the case, when someone dies in their sleep, and maybe they do an autopsy and they had a heart attack, that's exactly what happened inwardly, is they had a dream experience, and death occurred in the dream on the inner, hence death occurred on the outer via the heart attack.
I'm never going to be able to unhear this.
And
I'm serious. I mean, I always thought you are protected in some manner, and that's why you wake up before you hit the ground. But you're telling me, no, you can't hit the ground, and then, like, you have a heart attack, and you die, and you can't come back and tell anybody about it because you're dead.
And we'll separate these experiences real quickly. And when I think we've all had that falling dream at one time or another where we're all fall off the cliff. I have many times. And what happens is, as we're falling, we're really falling in consciousness. We're coming from maybe an astral consciousness or another consciousness in another dimension. We're falling back into the physical state. That's why just before we hit the ground, we wake up because we're really falling back into the body as a state of consciousness. That's different from, and many people have had that, that's different from actually maybe being on the astral plane and having an astral criminal shove us off a cliff in which we die on the astral plane. And when we do, the silver cord that connects us to the physical is cut or severed, and we die in our sleep. And, they say, oh, he died peacefully in his sleep. Well, that's not really the case.
Oh, you see now, that's another thing Dr. Albert Taylor told me couldn't happen. The silver cord cannot break. You're safe, Art. Don't worry. You could go from here to the moon. Silver cord would stretch out, wouldn't break, pull you right back. You'd be safe, no problem. And you guys are saying no way.
Well, you know what I like about the Trust Yourself system, Art, and I was going to say this for all your listeners, because here we are, we're having a conversation. Now, Michael and I, we do know of what we speak. However, people are listening, and they can believe it or not. But I say test it. I invite everyone to test what we're saying so they can personally come to a knowingness for validation and confirmation. And through that, what I'm saying is take it to the inner. Ask in a dream, ask to be shown a sign, or go with your gut to tell you the truth. That way your audience can have a knowingness as opposed to a belief or lack thereof of what we speak of. Because I want people to personally know these things.
As I mentioned, I can't now unhear this. Now I'm going to worry about this forever, forevermore, whatever more I've got. I'm going to worry about it. But, the next time I have a dream like this, it's going to occur to me what you've said, that I may hit the ground. Now, that's just very upsetting.
Now, Michael, see what you did.
I can bet that Art's going to be hewing every night now. I know it.
You've got it. And so if somebody were to shoot me in a dream, I could be shot dead.
Well, you'd probably have a heart attack if it was to go this way, and they would have said you died from a heart attack in the dream state,
right?
Type of thing. So.
Well, it doesn't matter. Gone is gone, right?
That's right. Gone is gone. So, and
So if somebody had evil intentions and knew you had a weak heart, they would promulgate a dream to you in which they shot you, and there's probably a pretty good chance you're going to be dead in the morning, heart attack, whatever.
Yeah, and there we go back to practitioners of the craft. I mean, there are people who are very, very well versed in how to do harm inwardly to other people without even being in their presence. So
it should be said that most practitioners of the craft are really good people who don't practice black magic. The great majority of them are good people. I don't want the wrong idea to go out tonight that the craft is all evil, because it's mostly all good. There are very few people who practice in the darker arts. I understand these people, but really most practitioners of the craft are very good spiritual people. Yes?
I concur with
you. Yes,
absolutely.
Okay. All right. Let's move on. Well, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I definitely want to cover, at some point, connecting with deceased loved ones in the dream state. And I also want to make sure we cover prophecy and signs before the call is over.
Okay. Well, we've got a lot of time. This is Sirius XM radio. When I say we have 4 hours of program, to be absolutely honest, I'm sure once we've done commercials, we've got maybe 3.5 hours of program. Whereas with most programs of this kind, if they say they have a 4-hour show, and you actually sit around with a stopwatch if you're so inclined, they probably got 50% show and 50% commercials.
Good point.
Yeah.
So, we got a lot of time. We're cool. We're good. Now, cats. You have something here about cats being able to protect you from unseen forces, even perhaps in your dreams, and so forth and so on. I'm a big cat person. Had cats all my life. Have them now. Brought one back from the Philippines with me. Little beauty. And so cats are all around me all the time. They really are some form of protection. And if so, why not dogs? What about cats special?
Well, it's interesting because we have a black cat named Smokey.
Big fluff ball. He's a little Persian.
Yeah, sure. He's a real love ball. But he, in ancient Egypt, I mean, there's a whole mythology that goes along with this.
Yes. They worship cats.
Oh, they worship cats.
And the saying goes, cats have never forgotten.
You know it.
Yes.
They're all like that now, fortunately or unfortunately. But they use cats also to protect them against the underworld, the darker forces coming into your area, your state of consciousness when it's unwanted. And today, cats serve the same function. And if you have cats, as you've mentioned, you've noticed how many times has your cat looked over your head or in back of you at the wall as if they're seeing something, and suddenly they're just frozen on it.
All the time.
That's because they have the ability to not only sense and feel, but to see the energy, the spectrum of energy that we can't see. It's like seeing infrared. They can see things in the spectrum that we can only feel from time to time, like a cold spot, or suddenly your hair stands on end and you wonder, what was that? Oh my God. Cats can sense, they can sense that all the time. And their awareness of it keeps those forces in check, which is a really good reason to have the cats around, because they're like a dark forces monitor. And they always know when the presence is around that you don't want there, so they let you know.
Well, I should say, not only do they look at things that don't appear to be there, but I have seen a cat, I have 3 presently, go from apparent absolute sleep, if they're ever really asleep, and to jumping clean right up vertically in the air and taking off like a bat out of hell. And you always wonder, now what did that?
Right. Cats.
So I guess they're good to have around then.
They're good to have around, and they spend a lot of time on the astral plane. That's why they sleep 18 hours a day, because they're half in the astral and half here. So they're really good monitors as to what's going on inwardly.
Yeah, they're really tapped in. Much more than dogs, because you mentioned dogs a minute ago, and they always have that half the consciousness is on the astral plane. So,
well, dogs are happy little beings that jump around and lick you, and they're really. But cats, it's as though cats. I had a cat that was sick, and I think I ended up spending about $7,000 or $8,000 getting this cat cured. And I had an opportunity to speak to the veterinarian at length about my cat. And one comment she made to me has always stuck with me. She was a specialist in Las Vegas, a real specialist. She said, cats, physiologically, might as well be from Mars. They are so different than any other mammal on the planet, internally, physiologically, that they might as well be from Mars. And she was absolutely serious.
That's
something for you to remember.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. All right, young lady, there were a number of things you said you wanted to get to, so let's march down one of those roads. What would you like to talk about?
Let's talk about connecting with deceased loved ones, shall we?
Sure.
And I'm going to just lead right with the animals. We tend to reincarnate with our animals. So that's a nice, happy thought, because our animals are like our kids. They're like our pets.
Yes.
If you've got the love bond, which typically, pet and pet owners do, and they reincarnate with their owners, even go back and forth, cat to dog, et cetera, and you'll know because they'll exhibit a behavior in the present life, something that resembles your animal that maybe you had 10 years ago that's passed on. They'll exhibit the same behavior, and that'll be an identifier to the fact that this is the same soul. So that's a nice thought, something to share.
Well, it's a nice thought, but cats to some degree and dogs act the same way, so I'm not sure that that's easily absorbed by me. I mean, they do act in similar ways. Of course, it's true, but I don't know that it means that it's the soul of the departed.
Let me be more specific, Art. Okay, let's say your cat. Okay, here's an actual story of a client we had. The cat had a certain blanket, and that was the cat's blanket. Then the cat translated. Now the person got a dog, and the dog kept going right to that blanket, just like the cat did, letting the owner know, hey, it's me, and I'm back. They'll use different methods, but something that the owner will recognize in order to let the owner know. And the way you can confirm it once again, Art, is take it to the dream state or set up a sign or go with your gut so you have full knowingness that this, in fact, is your reincarnated animal.
It's kind of like the test that they give to the Dalai Lama, and they bring those toys out and they lay it before the small kid or the baby, and it selects the same toy, and they go, whoop, Dalai Lama from a previous life.
Yeah. Yes, well, there is a lot of that. I don't know how much weight to give it, but it's an interesting thought. All right, so there you have one. What else did you want to get in?
Oh, yeah, connecting with deceased loved ones.
With loved ones, yes. Now, before we get to that, let's talk about eternal souls. Now, I would like to understand, and I understand that you believe in the eternal soul, obviously. However, I'm not as sure. I do have some doubts, frankly, that there may be another side. I think there is. I hope there is, but I'm the kind of person who really demands proof. Now, so far tonight, with all the things we've talked about with regard to dreams, we're pretty much talking about a living human brain perceiving these things or going through these things. Now we're going to talk about after death. So it's kind of a whole new category. How do you all know that there really is another side?
Michael Lynn?
For me, it comes down to going there, experiencing it. In other words,
going there.
Yeah, and what is truth really? Well, truth is a knowingness that we've experienced. When we experience something personally, at a personal level, it becomes a knowingness. And 7 billion people on the planet can say, oh, that's not so. And I'll say, yes, it is, because I know it to be so. Thereby, when I sleep and I dream and I leave the body, or I leave the body, soul travel in meditation or contemplation, whatever you want to call it, I have experiences in places that I bring back here in full knowingness that allows me to say 110% that I know there's a life after death. I know there is no death, that there's just a translation, a shifting of energy. Because, and
what is it that makes you know that, Michael?
The experience itself. By going there and experiencing it inwardly and bringing it back to this life. It was interesting. Many years ago, I had a paint and body shop, and a local minister dropped his car off to have it painted, and he came to pick it up, and it was the end of the day, and I had a bottle of wine there, and I started drinking before he got there. So by the time he got there, I was just a half shade to the wind, and he asked me the question. He said, "Hey, do you go to church, or are you going to be coming to church on Sunday?" and I said, "Why?" And he said, "Well, so that basically, how do you know where you're going after death? You need to cover your options here." And I said, "Oh, I know where I'm going." And he said, "What?" He said, "You know where you're going?" And I said, "Oh, absolutely." He said, "How do you know that?" I said, "Because I've been there." And then I launched, and he could not get out of there fast enough. He grabbed his car and drove away and never wanted to see me again.
I hope he paid you first.
He did.
Well, I found that an interesting way that he presented it to you, come to church, cover your options, Sounds like covering a bet here in Vegas or something.
Absolutely.
But you're saying, no, it's really not like that, because you already know. And I'm, even though you're telling me you know because of your experience, that doesn't transfer that level of confidence to me.
Correct.
No, which is why we go to the system, dream science, intuition, art. I promise you that's your way of knowing this.
And you at that point you can read it in the book, or if I tell you, you can say, "Oh, Michael told me he knows," but that doesn't mean you know. It's kind of like the Gnostics, gnosis, to know. And if you ask a GNOS, a Gnostic, if they believe in God, they'd say no. But I've asked them the wrong question. If I said, "Do you know there's a God?" then they would smile and say, "Oh, absolutely." And if I said, "How do you know?" they'd say, "Because I've been there. I've experienced it. I know that this thing is so." Therein lies the truth,
Well, you ought to ask that of a guy named Matthew Albert. Hold tight. We're at a break point, and so that's exactly what we'll do. I want to remind you that I have an announcement tomorrow night of some great significance. It will come, I think, at the end of tomorrow night's program. And, of course, tomorrow night is Spooky Matter. And that's when we're going to talk about ghosts. Oh, my, are we going to talk about ghosts, all of you. From the high desert and the great American Southwest, this is Dark Matter. All right. Once again, the Dream Team. And listen, team, we're going to get shortly to the phone line. So if there's anything else on your list of things, well, I guess we really didn't finish talking about talking to a loved one who has passed. So if you want to pick up on that and then anything else you've got, then we'll go to the phones.
All right. Briefly, we'll cover these things because a lot of listeners have deceased loved ones, and we hear it often from our clients. They wish they knew that they were okay. They wish they knew that they were having peace and things like this. And so you can actually program a dream to connect with a deceased loved one instead of going to a psychic or a medium, once again, putting it outside of yourself, bring it back within, trust yourself, and this is a 3-step process, a technique. They simply lie down before bed. They do several cues for clarity and a heightened state of awareness and consciousness. They conjure up a fond, loving memory of the deceased loved one, and they ask to be connected. And they will have a dream with the deceased loved one, if not on the first night, certainly by the third. And in that dream, they'll bring a message, the loved one will, a message of love or peace or guidance, something of reassurance. And they can use this technique anytime they want. But additionally, it's on autopilot anyway. After a loved one dies, after the emotions fade, and the family member that's still alive, living, after those emotions fade and they get clear, they will start remembering dreams with the deceased loved one. But additionally, they can set it up and actually program it to bring some comfort and peace.
How do we know, I don't mean to be rude, but I mean, how do we know that it's not our brains so incredibly wanting, our living brains so wanting to, as you put it, know that our loved one is okay, that we don't manufacture the information? That's the obvious question.
It's a feeling more than anything else, Art. And it's kind of like the answer to the question, how do we know anything? Well, unless we've been there, people can tell me about skydiving, but unless I skydive, I'll never have the feeling. I'll never have the knowingness of what it is to experience skydiving.
You might want to put that off. I went on a glider, then, a hang glider and broke my arm. Bone was sticking out. You might want to put that off for a while.
But it's one way to, the dream will impart a feeling that we bring back as the real deal. And that person at that point has that knowingness within them that was what they were looking for. That's the assurance. Mm-hmm. How can we know in this life? That's as good as it gets. Or another example, which is one other thing we're going to talk about, and that is prophecy. And it's rather interesting because people say, well, how do I know that dreams are any more than just a dream? Like right. Your mother said, oh, it's just a dream, don't worry about it. Right. Well, if we journal our dreams, if we track them, if we jot them down and start writing them down when we wake up, we will find, here's something for your listeners, we will find that the majority of our dreams are absolutely prophetic. And it's pretty stunning. And the only way to know it is because we forget the dreams if we don't jot them down. When we jot them down, in a week, if we go back, or 2 weeks, we look at our dreams, we'll go, oh my God, that happened 3 days later, that happened a week later, and we experience a breakthrough at that point. It's like dreams are prophetic. I've just realized it. And that alone gives us insight to the significance and importance and guidance, really, of dreams.
So, if I fall asleep, and I'm young, and I fall asleep, and I dream of something with really big, glowing red eyes, and teeth that are about 3 inches long each, with a long snout coming at me. And Mom says, "Oh, honey, it's just a dream. I should be wary because red eyes are on the way."
Because the next night or 5 days down the way, you may be watching a scary movie, and guess what? There is that monster from the dream, and you'll go, "Oh my God, there it is."
It's okay. It's all right if it's in, who cares if it's in a movie? I just don't want it in my bedroom.
I don't blame you.
All right. Anything else we should cover before beginning to speak with the peoples?
I think we're ready for the peoples, aren't we?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Bring on the peoples.
Here
Let them have their say.
Okay, good. Here they come. And we'll begin in Oklahoma with Daniel. You're on with the Dream Team, Daniel.
Roswell's to you and many more Area 51s.
Thank you.
But anyway, my question is, I'm a trucker, and I do a lot of long hours and stuff like that, but there's times when I go to sleep, and I'm dreaming, and I'm around a crowd of people or something like that, but I'm still tired in my dream, and I'm trying to hold my eyes open. I feel like a leaf kind of floating toward the ground, and my eyes are shut and trying to go back to sleep. What is that caused from?
It sounds like you're tired. you're simply tired, and the dream state's a reflection of this state. And you're like you said you're a long haul trucker, so one is a reflection of the other.
And it's wonderful. We never get to hear from long haul truckers. It's just great to hear from you.
Well, I tell you, I do get a good night's sleep, from it. I get, and you wake up, you feel exhausted from it. Still. Yeah. All right, I appreciate it, and I'll go off the air and let somebody else take it. Thank you.
We all hope that you long-haul truckers will stay awake. Because that's been one of my nightmares. You see a big 18-wheeler coming at you like sideways, slipping in. That's one of the ones where you probably wake up with a heart attack or something like that. Okay, I'm going to take a shot here and go to the PC and see if we can take a Skype call. Matt, you're on the air.
How's it going tonight?
Just fine, Matt. How are you?
I am doing awesome. Hey, just had a question for your guests. You guys briefly touched on it earlier, dying within a dream. I actually had a few dreams where I have been shot by people and have collapsed, have died, but my consciousness is still there, and I am able to hear the surroundings and everything.
Wow.
I'm dead within the dream, but usually a couple minutes later, that's when I wake up, and here I am.
Mm-hmm. I think that's weird and unusual. Usually, of course, I've got the Dream Team here, so is that unusual for somebody to have dreams like that where they're actually shot?
Actually, it's not unusual, and a simple interpretation is death of something old making way for something new to come into one's life. It's actually a very good symbol.
Okay, Matt, enjoy your woundings.
Thank you.
Take care, buddy. If you want to contact us on Skype, it's art.bell51. That's all you have to do. Oh, Art.
And we'll leave Art and his Dream Team there for tonight. We will pick them up in their final portion tomorrow night. As for us, that'll bring today's round of From Day One to a close. As always, please like, share, and subscribe. Get us to the goal of 50,000 views and 1,000 subscribers. So box you over an extra sense of those nice red packages. And Google, YouTube will put us on the algorithms. CoinBase, Ibotta, and Gain.gg, get them filled, get your monies, get your freebies, and help the show at the same time. And until next time, like, share, and subscribe, be kind to one another, and release the Krakens as we continue to march along here from Day One. Have a great night, enjoy your night's rest, and hope you program a good dream.